Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anderson Cooper.
Wishful thinking.
My name is Father Charles Latour, and it's an honor and a pleasure to be here with all of you. I'm especially excited to be here at this panel presentation. As someone who works with high school students, I'm a high school principal in Covington, Louisiana. I'm all too aware of a man in my mid-50s at 54, how things are different, how they perceive the world differently. And as we started to prepare for this conference, we gave a lot of thought to not just looking at who we were as Dominicans and celebrating the last 800 years, but I think it's just as important that we begin to look at who we are and who we are becoming. And in order to do that, I think it's important that, and we thought as part of the steering committee, to have a panel presentation to listen and to hear from young men and women, young Dominicans, who are millennials. As many of you know, and the research is certainly out there, the millennial generation thinks very differently. This is a post-9/11 generation. This is a generation that after 9/11, and studies have clearly shown it has affected them. And it affects them in the way they work, in the way they see the world. And I think just as importantly, it affects us who they are spiritually and how they live out their own faiths. So we're very blessed to have these four wonderful panelists joining us. They're all in their 20s. Well, just at the end. Very tough to you. And we'll start by just panelists. If you'd please take a few moments and just introduce yourselves. Sister Anna, please.
I guess the elders shall go first.
Yes.
I'm Sister Imelda. I'm a Dominican sister with the Sisters of Mary Immaculate Province. We're located in Houston, Texas. I entered the order in 2004. I grew up in Houston. I was born in Philadelphia, so that's why you asked me. Yes, Philly. So, but I grew up in Houston. So, and I came to know of our sisters through ministry, catechism at my home parish. Was definitely afraid of them, to be honest. They would walk on one side, I would dart over to the other side. But I had the Painter's vocation in my community because no one ever came up to me and said that you have a vocation to the Dominican order. But by God's grace, He led me here into my vocation, and I'm currently ministering in the Diocese of Fort Worth. I would say that's like the Diocese of Dallas to the west, right? And so I'm teaching high school there. My father said there are a lot of challenges there teaching high school students. And in preparing for this panel discussion, I did think about them a lot and how to incorporate some of those things into sharing this afternoon. And I look forward to sharing how we can, as young Dominicans, to bring about the sense of Dominican spirituality in society today. And so I'm in my 13th year entering into the order. So I'm still young, considered young. So a third of my life has been in the order so far.
Angelo, thank you, sister.
My name is Angelo. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. I came to the US 5 years ago, 2011, to study graphic design at Ballard University. Took one theology class, decided I'm going to double major in this. Graduated last year from undergrad, started my master's this year in practical theology. So some of my professors are here, just waiting to get on top of me right now. And I think we have a really great group here right now. We have a lot of potential, and I hope you guys enjoy.
Thank you. Brother Carl. I'm Brother Carl Joseph Paustian. I'm a Dominican friar from the Southern Province, and I'm in my 6th year of formation. This previous May 2016, I professed solemn vows to the province and the order, which was a wonderful grace. I graduated from Texas A&M University in 2009, and then on my pastoral year during formation, I ministered at Texas Tech. So while I'm still a young adult myself, I also done ministry with young adults, which I found to be incredibly life-giving and really wonderful. And one of my students is here to my right, which is great.
Hello, my name is Narah Alcoreza. I go to Texas Tech University, but I'm from El Paso, Texas. And I am a senior, and I'm, God willing, going to graduate in December with Human Sciences. And I'm very involved with my Catholic Student Association at Tech, And I'm really looking forward to sharing with you guys what we do and how the Dominicans have been a major component to just me becoming a Catholic, pretty much.
Thank you all. Just to get things started, can you tell us a little bit about what was it about the Dominican charism that attracted you initially? What was it that hooked you?
All right, for me, like I said, I was scared of our sisters. One of which was here. It was only the charism I knew. Besides our sisters, religiously, I watched Sister Act, and that's the only other religious experience I had.
Yes, because maybe Goldberg is such a Dominican.
Very well, right? To be consistent in that. And so I don't know if that was where God started calling me, and I guess I was blessed, I would say, to be exposed to our charism and how our sisters taught, and there was a zeal, and I can see in the passion of our sisters. They taught catechism and how they care for each and every one of us, even though we collectively look probably bored in their eyes at times, but they still care for each and every one of us. They talk to us as though we are that one soul that they're gonna save. And that really drew me to our order. And it was the only number that I knew to call and discern. And as I discerned, and it was really difficult when you said, like, what's one thing or about the charism? It was really every dimension of our charism. You can't really, I could not choose one, because collectively they're all together as one. It was, the first thing was probably community life, and everything flows from that. We do prayer community, study community, go out in apostolic life community. And so, in that sense, that's family. And I think that's where it was that really drew me to our order and our charism. And so, thank you, sisters, who are here in support.
Thank you, Carl.
So, since this is being live streamed, I'm hesitant to share this story, but actually drew me to the Dominicans was Father Charlie Latour. So you can actually go thank him or blame him after this talk. But Father Charlie was the vocations director at the time when I was discerning, and he came to the university where I was studying at Texas A&M, and he was celebrating Mass. And I'd been discerning with the diocese, and I looked at some religious orders up to that point, but I hadn't found something that had like a spark or an attraction to me. And then I saw Father Charlie process down the main aisle of St. Mary's in College Station wearing cowboy boots.
Oh my God.
As a good Texan, I thought, well, that's somebody I have to go meet because he's got some spunk. So that was my first contact with the Dominicans, was meeting Father Charlie. He then invited me on a come and see weekend. And as I kind of discerned, I said I hadn't found anything that had a spark to it. But as I went on this come and see weekend and I heard it talk about the 4 pillars, it was like my mind just blew up. That there was such a balance in the Dominican charism. There was something that seemed so natural about it that it just fit with me. That we were rooted in study and prayer and community, and that we had an outward focus on preaching and evangelization. And so, even though Father Charlie's cowboy boots initially drew me, I fell in love with the order because of the balance that I found in our charism.
I think what drew the Dominican's charism in my life was Father Jorge, who used to be our chaplain. He's somewhere around here, and he would come to all of our meetings. Like, we put on retreats for high school students and middle school students around the Lubbock Diocese, and he would like come to our meetings and he would joke with us, and he would like interact with our lives and just be part of what's going on with us currently. And he was so approachable, and unfortunately he left, but then we got Brother CJ over here, and then Brother Nicholas, and then Father Francis, and they all are very similar but very different, and they just relate to us, and they just get us, and that's just what I love about them.
Thank you. As you, oh, go ahead, Angelo.
No, that's good.
Okay.
Also, if you had a question for me, you could ask. If you had a question to ask, you should.
Please do, yes.
No, say you, if you had a
Oh,
question.
I don't have a question, but thank you for asking. Appreciate that.
I think in a way, the Dominicans chose me. I didn't necessarily choose them. Because or choose us, I should say now. I was born into a Dominican parish, elementary school Dominican, college Dominican. But the main reason that I continue to stay every day is mainly because of the community. I think that, you know, the more love there is, the more we can do as people, as human beings. So the main thing for me is the community.
I want to build off what both Angelo and Nada said. When I was at Texas Tech, and this kind of comes up with a question that Father Bruno asked recently. Father Bruno asked what it is that we as Dominicans offer to the church of today. And I was thinking to myself that I think really what we offer is a witness of community. You see so often in our world, like think about the last time you went out to eat at a restaurant. It probably wasn't uncommon to look over at the table next to you and see a family of 4 or 5 people sitting there and everybody's glued to their phone. They're there together and they're in a community, but they're not connected, they're not with each other. And so I think us as Dominicans and part of the Dominican family, we witness to the world by our experience of community, our experience of connectedness. When I was at Texas Tech, in the week that I was leaving, I was talking to one of the seniors, and he said to me as we were leaving, he said, the thing that I love about the Dominicans is when I came to this parish, I didn't really know a priest very personally. I never really talked to a religious before. But I got the sense, knowing the Dominicans, that these people actually care for me, that they care about who I am, they care about getting to know me, and they want to minister to me. They witness that in their life together, and then it comes across in their interactions. And so as we as an order think about what we offer to the church and to the world, and especially to young adults, we offer that witness of community, we offer that witness of caring and compassion.
Well, it's interesting, Carl Joseph, if I can dovetail off on that, because the interesting thing about the millennial generation is if you talk about it, they are the most text-driven, social media, Twitter, you're all about that kind of, all of those technologies that individualize yourselves. And yet, what each one of you have said, as I took notes, we're talking about zeal, individuality, balance. It's all about relationality. And it seems that what I hear you saying is that what attracted you and possibly what continues to feed you in your Dominican charism and as Dominicans is that sense of Dominican community, that sense of individuality, that ability to pull you out of yourself and into others. And maybe that's something that we need to consider as we start looking at our own ministries to young adults and to the young adult church, is maybe just exactly that. Maybe that's what the young adult church is looking for. And that kind of moves to this next question is, I'd be very curious, I think we're curious to hear from your side, what do you see are the challenges facing the church today, from your point of view? Both the church, yeah, we'll start with that.
I honestly do not know what the church is lacking, so please.
Carl Joseph is looking at me because we already talked this. I can say any hard questions, you're gonna bat it over to sister.
We've been doing that for centuries.
Sisters know everything. But one of the things that I see there's a challenge with young adults and some adults is that, I'm going to say we because collectively, we want to be spiritual but not religious. Meaning that we want to be spiritual beings because we know we have someone or something greater, but we don't want to necessarily connect that with God. Because like God has a standard for us. He has rules, but what is his standards? Why does he create everything for us and put everything in order? Because he knows what we want, what we need. But as being humans, we tend not want to strive for that. Why? Because sometimes it's hard. We don't see the tangible effects of it, especially with spiritual life. Physically, when we push ourselves, we see the effects. If you're an athlete, you can get better, you can get stronger, you can be the best quarterback. I use football a lot because I enjoy football. That's like a third religion for me, besides a religious experience. It's football because people, especially professional athletes, they have coaches or people that push them. They see the effects of it. But as part of spiritual life, we have that struggle, and we always wonder, if God loves us. That's a whole question for centuries. If God loves us, then why would this happen? Why does He allow this to happen? And it's a question to this very day with some of the youths. That they want to be spiritual, but they don't want God in the picture. But how do we bring God in the picture with them, for them? And so it kind of made me realize, think about how do we really feed their spirituality? And thinking, allowing God to enter into life, how can we realize, to help them that, you know, we're made more than ourselves and here on this earth, and realize that we're going back to our Father, and how beautiful that is, that we have this nourishment. I showed my students an image of a playground. There was, I think, a psychologist, and he observed a playground, and then there was two types of playgrounds. One that was fenced in, and so he noticed the children when they were in this playground area, when they're in this fenced-in playground area, they would run all over the place because they feel protected. They can go along the boundaries, but when there's no fence around it, they tend to stay in clusters. They don't want to reach out and go out. And that's part of like our spirituality. We have this fencing in, but it's out of love. And that's one of the things that some of the young adults today is understanding true love. And that true love is God, who's someone who's concrete, who's tangible, who's objective. I mean, it becomes so subjective, and I think we kind of realize that in our ministry, that it's just me and God, but I don't want God in the picture. They don't deny God, but again, they keep in the safety net, but we're spiritual beings. And so I don't know if y'all can counter that or not.
One of the things that I've observed, and the student brothers who study with me in St. Louis can talk about this with you also, we reached out to some young adults a couple of years ago, and one of the things that we asked them, we said, you know, how is it that you need to be served in the church, and what is it that we as Dominicans can offer you, you know, specifically? And the thing that they told us is that what they yearn for most in their lives is silence. And so they're yearning for experiences of God where they can meet God in the silence. And so the Dominican student brothers came up with an idea that we call, it's a program that we host about once a month or every 6 weeks called Non Nisite, which means only yourself, Lord. And so it's a night where we invite young adults into our house. They come and they pray with us in the chapel. And we have exposition of the Blessed Sacrament. Because we're Dominicans, we always have somebody who preaches for about 20, 25 minutes. We have time for music. We also have about a 30 to 45 minute block of silence, so that these young people can come to our chapel, just be there in silent prayer with one another in community, but then also be fed by the Word of God, be fed by their community interactions with them. And then at the end of the night, we invite them to close the evening out by saying compliment us. And the effect that the Liturgy of the Hours has had in the lives of many of these young people is really profound. They find that's something that roots them in the tradition of the faith. That's something that ties them back to the church really strongly, and seeing the witness of the Dominicans praying it, and then the invitation for them to join in is something that's been really powerful for them. And then we close out the night with a social so that they can get to know one another and have another sense of informal community. But the thing that's made this really successful is that we offer them a time for silence. We offer them a time just to be there and to pray, to be still, because the world around us is so busy and so moving, there's all these external demands, that they just need time to be alone with God.
You know what I hear you saying is it seems as though what the kind of the string that's running through both of your comments is that what the church really needs, or what's lacking, is providing young adults opportunities to experience, taking it out of the realm of, so to speak, the theological, kind of the ethereal, and making it much more pragmatic, much more practical. Giving them an invitation and an opportunity to interact with their faith. Because it seems to me, at least from the studies that I've read, and tell me if it's that one of the issues with millennials is because of the 9/11 event, you seem to want very much, you're searching for black and white. You like things to be very clear, and you like clear boundaries and clear parameters, and thus, for some people, they kind of take that either too far or they get lost in the ideologies, but what they're really searching for, from what I hear you saying, and what we need to respond to, is by giving them an experience of God, an experience of community, an experience of silence. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think like my generation, what we want more than anything is an identity. Like, we want to be so secure in like who we are, but we don't know how to get there. And a major component to that is having boundaries set for us, but us not knowing that they are set for us. Like, that's our issue. Like, we don't.
You all have lots of issues.
We do have many issues, but we welcome new ideas, and we welcome the opportunity to interact with somebody who's older than us, and who treat us just as equals. We love to know that like we can go up to anybody and we can talk about anything, like whether it be politics or gardening or anything. And what Brother CJ was saying, like having that time of just silence, but it being structured is like wonderful, because I'm a planner, and my planner like is filled with stuff like to the minute, and just having a time of silence and of reflection and meditation, but have scripture in there, like it not just be kind of like liberal, but like have like things is important, because we need that.
So I know a lot of people who, if we could put it this way, they're searching for God. So as far as they're concerned, God doesn't exist. And I think what a lot of them look for is this miraculous experience, almost something like, you know, where you hear experiences in terms of like with the mystics even, right? They're looking for something transfigurative. I think one of the ways we could counteract this is teaching them that, well, at least I think when God created the world, He created it with, you know, it's a lot more than what we think it is just an earth. You know, everything has the potential to be a lot more than what it is, and we have the opportunity to find the extraordinary in the ordinary if we really, you know, look at it through the eyes of faith.
I guess what, continuing on what Angelo was saying, I think there's also a lost sense of wonder and awe in things, in the ordinary, and finding things extraordinary in the ordinary. And with young adults, again, they're trying to find, like, I guess, the next big bang or the next come to Christ or something, but they don't take that moment and know God's presence at that moment, and being filled and being loved, knowing just to sit somewhere, be still, and, you know, the verse, be still, know that I am God. And to have that moment, you can have that contemplative moment at that point. And again, we're in a society where we want something instantly. God, you're not showing up, okay, I'm gonna move on. I'm a little bored. I cannot wait for you to come, which He does come into our time. And for a lot of the youths today, or young adults, they just want something so instant, so, I don't know how to else say that, so instant in their lives.
Would you say that they want that, and would you say also that they want certainty? I know that one of the challenges that when I was as vocation director working with vocation candidates, and even now when I'm doing marriage prep, is this sense of, Father, I want to know for sure. And I'm like, you're not going to get a text message from God. It doesn't work that way. The burning bush, no. You know, that's where faith comes in. And do you find that that sense of certainty, that sense of, I want a clear, defined message, we need to somehow help you all move beyond that to live in the messiness?
I totally agree with that statement. I've done some research that says that millennials are the most risk-adverse generation in the church right now. And you see this in lots of different ways. Think about, I mean, you probably all know young people who are, you know, later in their 20s or their early 30s who still aren't married. Well, if you go back to my grandparents' generation, you didn't see it. You see young people now who are entering religious life a little bit later than maybe they did a couple of generations ago. It's because millennials are afraid of commitment. And that's a caveat to that, is that's another beautiful thing that we as Dominicans can witness to, is a sense of commitment to one another, a commitment to the church, and a commitment to God. I think that's a great witness that we offer at the churches, showing young people how to be committed, how to be rooted in something, and how to carry through with it. But I do think that we're risk adverse, and we want to know things for sure, we want to be certain. But as all of us know, that's not practical or real on this side, you know, the eschaton. We're never going to know things for sure, for certain. And I think one of the things that we can do is encourage people in our preaching is to be comfortable with the unanswered questions, but to be brave enough to still ask them.
That's excellent. Let's pretend just for, do you want to add to that? Okay. It's almost like, get away from me. No, bad priest.
I'd like to add to that.
Yes.
I think Another thing we can do is if we redefine what we mean by citizenry. I mean, I look in this room and this is a lot of citizenry right here, you know, but if we don't have something tangible, physical, concrete in front of us, we think that isn't citizenry. But maybe if we redefine what citizenry is, then it'll bring a lot more people to the answers that they're looking for.
Let's pretend you have an opportunity. Father Bruno is here for this weekend. Let's say you have an opportunity and he looks at you and says, I want you to tell me what this order can do, one thing the order can do to better connect with and reach out to young adults, and I will do it whatever you want. I guess I should start looking at another religious order. Either that or Siberia's always looked so good. What do you think? What would you say to him could be, I mean, as young adults and you're looking at the Master of the Order of Preachers and he's giving you carte blanche, what can we do to reach out and connect with to young adults from your perspective? Just what would feed you?
What would feed me and my peers would be like the challenge. Like, put something in front of us and make it seem impossible to reach, and we will reach it, like, because we do not like being told that we cannot do something. So just
I don't know that I have a fully thought out or defined program, so maybe that's lucky for you, Bruno. But I do know what I think is key to reach young adults is personal relationship. I found that over and over in my ministry at Texas Tech, that the reason that the students came there was because they felt connected with one another and they felt connected to the friars. And like I said earlier, they knew that the friars cared about them. And so I think whatever thing we do, whatever programs we start, we have to get across to the people that we serve how deeply we care for them and how our care for them is a reflection of God's deep care for them. I think that's what young people yearn for the most right now.
I agree a lot with what Carl Joseph says, that everyone needs to know that they're cared for. I think we need to go back to, not that we deviated too much, but we need to go back to the ideals of St. Dominic, that, you know, we go out and praise, preach, bless, because a lot of people, especially us as a younger generation, we just want to hear that we're not alone. Because we grew up in such an individualized society, a lot of us think that we grew up alone and apparently everyone else on the earth doesn't have as deep lives as us. I don't know. But, you know, everyone goes through experiences in a different way. Everyone's life is as deep as the other. So I think we just, you know, profess the whole community message of the Dominicans and bring people together, then it'll really, you know, establish some solidarity, is what I want to say.
As for me, it's very similar to also to see brother Carl Joseph and Angelo, the connectedness, because there's such a disconnectedness with technology. That was brought up in one of the talks with Mother Walter, and I was just like, this is so perfect. Basically answering my question here, that how do we connect with the young adults? I mean, we can't get rid of, I wish we can sometimes get rid of these cell phones, because I'm teaching high school and they're like always in their labs. But how do you still connect with them? And coming on from a quote that some of us may have heard before, we may be the only gospel that a person may ever read. How do we bring about the good news to someone? And also from Father Brian's talk with the profile of Martin Porras and St. Rosalima, what Francis had talked about on the Feast of St. Cajetan, just quickly paraphrasing, do we look in their eyes? Do we touch them? And so are we doing that every time as we as Dominicans? I mean, honestly, if you look at our charism, it's basically really a perfect portrait of a family life. Community, prayer, and you have our mission. But how do we bring that? How do we become the incarnate Word of Christ, the Word made flesh? Not being incarnate Christ, not Christ himself, but reincarnating the Word of God in ourselves and in our ministry. Bringing authentic to that, bringing a sense of joy, and that zeal to it. And I think that's what in the beginning, for most of us, when we're attracted to our vocation and our charism, is that zeal of being able to save one soul. And we're able to just make a difference and save one soul and allow that that one soul to encounter God. Can we do that? And so that's one thing that's been driving me. And actually this quote, I mean, it's probably been around, the one with saying, you may be the only gospel that a person may ever reads. I heard that from one of my students, which was quite surprising, and it really opened my eyes and gave me a different light, a way of going about preaching the word of God in the classrooms.
What I hear from you, and what I find interesting is, although this was a hypothetical with Father Bruno, it was hypothetical, Father Bruno. Please don't transfer me to Siberia. You are speaking to men and women, Dominicans, both lay and professed, from all over the South. And what I hear you saying to them is that your generation is really looking for a relationship. You're looking for that encounter. You're looking for the preaching that goes beyond just the pulpit, but that one-to-one preaching that we have in that moment with someone when they need counsel, or that person that needs us to walk the journey with them, or that person that perhaps just needs to hear from someone that believes in Veritas, that understands that community can bring you in and bring them into our communities. So what I really hear you doing is really saying to that and going to you is, along with that comes a challenge, is can you walk with us? Is your life more than just texting, or is your life more than just that individualized life? And I see that, so I'm going to follow up with this question. And please be honest, do you have hope for the church in the next 20 years? Where do you think the Catholic Church is going to go? I didn't send you that question in advance, I'm sorry, but I just feel the spirit calling. You're ready to kill me, aren't you? You're giving me that look. He didn't send me that question. No.
I think we have hope 100%. I think that we, as a young generation, no matter how we may appear at the moment, we still know the difference between right and wrong, and we do tend to gravitate toward truth one way or another. I mean, like I said, I keep referring to everyone here in this room. I mean, we're not here by accident. The four of us up here, we're not here. Maybe some of us were forced. But we still decided to walk up here. Because, for example, to bring the four of us here, there are 400, 4,000 other people just like that. And we can come together, and because of the potential that we do have, a lot of the resources that we have today, no other generation in history had that before, mainly the internet and stuff. So we do have the potential and the creativity to do things that history has never seen before.
Since you didn't send the question in advance, I'm just going to give you a one-word answer. Yes. So yes, I do have a lot of hope. One of the things that Father Bruno did this year to help celebrate the Jubilee is he took a group of students, students in formation, friars, and women religious, on a pilgrimage through the lands of St. Dominic. So we started in Madrid and went through southern France and then ended up in Italy at the beginning of the general chapter. And I was there for 3 weeks with 126 young Dominicans. And let me tell you, there's a vibrancy and there's a hope in the young vocations that the order's getting. And I was blown away by my brothers and my sisters and the faith that we witnessed and that we shared with one another as we went back and reconnected with the deep roots of the order. It was really just this inspiring and incredible experience. And so when I hear sometimes people make comments that there's no vocations in the church and what are we going to do, I look around at the young men who joined our province. I look at young sisters who I see. I look at the young people that I was on the pilgrimage with, and I think these people are out of touch with reality. There's such a vibrancy and such a hope in the young people who are engaged in the church.
There is so much hope. Just in my little corner of the world in Lubbock, Texas, we put on a retreat that brings 300 students who might be Catholic, who might be atheists. We're all walking different paths in life, and we keep getting students like every single semester. And it's that unity that we're searching for, that individual relationship with Christ, not only with Christ, but with fellowship, and being able to share and talk about our problems and just be enlightened. And thankfully, we have our Dominicans students like at St. Elizabeth's who are so open to having a conversation with us, and they have like so much joy in their heart that just radiates, and we are so like, we want it so badly. So I just know it's just, this is like the middle, like it's not even the beginning, because it's like already here. Like students and like the young people, like we want that relationship with Christ. We know there's something more, and so yeah. No.
Well, you know, Nana, I have to say, this question came out of something I overheard you and Carl talking about when I was sitting and pretending to write. I was really eavesdropping. I do that at airports and any other place I go. But you said something really touched me when you were talking about your future, and Carl asked you, if you don't mind me saying this, if you were going to be going on to graduate school, and you said yes, you're taking your GRE, you're very excited, and that you wanted to get into the healthcare industry, and you wanted to somehow find something. When Carl mentioned there was an opportunity, perhaps there was a graduate program where you could go through Aquinas and bring theology and healthcare together. You sparked. You said, I really have wanted to somehow bring my faith into what I'm doing. And I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, wow, this is a young woman who can do anything she wants, and yet she wants to bring her faith into her workplace as a lay woman in the church in 2017. And that really edified me. I was touched. And I'm saying that because that's what led to this question, because I think there is hope.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah. So recently, I mean, I'm sure you all know this, but recently I found
Look how
out.
perky she gets.
Yeah, I mean, recently I found out that my primary vocation is to become a saint. Like, for me, like, to figure that out, when I heard that, I was like, what in the world? Like, who has been hiding this from me? This is crazy. Like, I am so, like...
Donald Trump, I'm sorry.
I have been so self-absorbed about worrying about like my earthly vocation that I haven't been thinking about like the main reason I was put on this world. So like knowing that like I am just like a little person, you know, like if I could figure that out, like anybody could, and like that's what I'm like so thrilled like for everybody to like figure out and like to like encounter. And so I know there's so much hope. Like, yeah, okay, take this away.
I think this is the next St. Rose of Lima right here.
Well, I'd like to ask one last question, then we're going to open it up to the audience for questions. But where do you see yourselves and your Dominican life and that Dominican charism as a vowed religious or as a lay person in, let's say, the next 15 years, in your mid-30s, God forbid, your early 40s?
I'll start. Father, I will be in my 40s in 15 years.
Own it, sister.
I own it, it's okay. Well, honestly, I still pray and hope that God gives me the help to continue my ministry where I'm at. I told my students, y'all drive me nuts, and I'm here a lot for you. They're like, huh? How does that work? I said, trust in God. And so, when we were talking about hope, they do give me hope. It's a struggle at times, and part of being a spiritual mother, it really kind of makes me think about my own parents and some of the struggles that I had gone through growing up in my own faith, and seeing them how they're battling this, but they haven't given up on hope. So that's one of the things that they've given to me is hope. That drives me in my ministry each and every day. I'm an introvert, so when school day shuts down, when I go back to the community, I just need that time with God, the silence. But they give me the energy every period, which is weird because I just don't know where it comes from. But it's my ministry. Knowing, again, going back to the salvation of souls. If I care for each and every one of their souls, that they are truly a child of God, that drives me each and every day. And not just them, but any person that I meet. Again, do I look at them in their eyes? Do I touch them? That's what I want to encounter. And I think one of my beloved saints is now John Paul II. He has this gift, and anytime he looks at someone, he remembers them. He looks at them in the eye, and you feel loved. And that's something that for me, myself, in my ministry, I do hope and pray that I'm still able to actively preach in this gift And so I pray that God wills that if I do that, and I get that drive each and every day.
I'll also be in my 40s, sister, so you're not alone. But I don't have a specific place that I want to be in mind. But my hope is that I have the grace to respond to the needs of the church, to the needs of the order, the needs of the province, to go where God needs me to go the most, to preach the gospel to those who need to hear it the most. And that I have the openness to respond to that call.
15 years, I just want to continue being open and to anything, and just remain faithful and remain patient, and just use all the graces and gifts that I've been given, and just spread them.
I'll say something that Father Gustavo said last night. I hope in 15 years that we are, I think the term was post-poverty, I believe he said, because the places that need us the most are actually pretty bad. Obviously, we all know this, but more and more things happen that we begin to appreciate that reality. So I hope 15 years from now, we're all still around to continue doing good work.
Thank you. I'd like to open it up to questions. Anything you ever wanted to ask a young adult but were afraid to ask?
Narah, at one point, Narah, however you say your name, I'll try to do good. At one point you talked about identity, that you want a strong sense of what I assume is Catholic identity. What is it that we as friars and sisters and Dominican laity, what is it that we can do to give you more opportunities to develop a Catholic identity? What does that look like? And that question could be for all of you, but your comments inspired it.
I think something small to do is being able to shadow you guys, and just being able to kind of walk in your shoes for a day, because even though I cannot become a friar, just whatever little prayer activities that you do during the day that bring you peace, I'm sure will bring me peace. And so just little things like that.
Open our lives to you,
Yeah,
per se.
pretty much. Yes, don't let you guys be a mystery to us. We're an open book. You guys do the same for us, I believe.
Any other questions? Sure.
Hi, thanks a lot for coming here and talking with us. And I've been wanting to ask this question for a long time. People talk a lot about how the events of 9/11 really affected the world before and after. And, that's kind of the understatement of the day maybe. But what I'd like to know is, do you remember 9/11 and how did it affect you? And has that had really an influence on your spiritual development?
I do remember 9/11. I remember, I think probably all of us in the room have a similar experience, but I remember exactly where I was and what I was doing the day that it happened. It touched my life in a particular way because my brother lived in New York City at the time, and my dad also works for an airline, and my dad happened to be traveling when it happened, and so there was a lot of fear in our family about kind of the immediate aftermath and what all of that meant. In terms of my spiritual development, I think it's probably made me maybe trust in God more. I think you saw this right after 9/11 happened, that our churches filled back up. That people wanted to know, they wanted to be in touch with God, and they wanted faith to be a part of their lives. And I think I certainly experienced that as well, and I think 9/11 helped me to trust God more, that there's a lot in this world that we can't control, but that God ultimately loves us and that we can trust in that.
Very similar to Brother Carl Joseph. I remember I was a junior in high school at this time. I was walking through the halls, and back then we had Channel 1 in your around my time, and student news, and so we had televisions in every classroom. And I was walking, and I'm like, this is not the time to watch Channel 1. And I saw this, and I see something going on, and I visited one of my old teachers, and I said, what's going on? I know the TV's on. And then she just said that there is a terrorist attack. And I did not know much about terrorism, and we've been affected before by that. And we saw the towers fall. And I remember at this time when I was in high school, I was not really connected to God. My faith is basically a reversion later on as part of my discernment that I became really connected to God. And I remember being silent that entire day and just asking God, what good did you want to come out from this? And I was just so surprised, and I remember saying that to myself. We see it as an evil act, and not know later, study scripture, like the story of Joseph and his brothers, and how his brothers sold him into slavery. And you said that you meant this for evil, but God meant it for good. And again, Brother Carl Joseph said a sense of trust in God, that he still brought about something good. He brought about a sense of solidarity, community, the faith of our church, knowing that God is still there, even in times of what we deem as evil acts upon us. And so it brought us closer as, I think, a Catholic, as a church. So I remember that, and I know that in some way or another, it also helped me with my faith and grow closer to God.
I'm Dave Karen. Thank you again, Alvin, for being here. I work in an office of evangelization in New Orleans, and one of the things we do is we go and we have focus groups, not only of young Catholics, but young Catholics that don't go to church anymore, the nuns, basically, they're called. And one of the things that they say to us, they say they feel that the church has been co-opted by some very loud voices that are not always charitable and kind. And I have a niece, so this is in my own family, who doesn't always go to church. She's 21, and she knows that I go and speak to parishes. And she says to me, Uncle Dave, tell the church people, don't be creepy. Don't be creepy. And I said, well, what do you mean? She said, some of them have more religion on them than in them. And I think she's right. So that's my first point, and I want to hear what you have to say to that, and then I have another point regarding methodology. So is there a way that not only we as Dominicans, but as the church, can we take the gospel back from those loud voices that are not always charitable and perhaps don't always represent the church?
It's certainly a hope of mine that we can do that. I look across this room and I see a lot of different faces, and I'm sure that each of us have and share a lot of different ecclesiologies, a lot of different theologies that we all hold. But I think something that we as Dominicans can witness to the world and to the church is fraternal charity and sororal charity. That we need to be kind to one another when we don't agree with one another. In St. Louis, I live in an intergenerational community. There's friars who are in their later years, there are friars in initial formation, and we don't always agree. But what I love about our community is that we're brothers first, regardless of whether or not we agree on ecclesiology or a theology of this or that. And so I think that's something that we as Dominicans need to witness better, that we're kind to one another, even in our disagreements.
I'm about to do something sacrilegious and use a Jesuit as a reference. I'm referring to Pope Francis. That his biggest theme, as everyone knows, is mercy. And it's not just mercy as a concept, it's mercy as a way of life, that every moment, every second of your life goes towards showing mercy. So I think living that way of life then is one of the ways to counteract some of the issues.
Show mercy and kindness.
Someone just mentioned loud voices that are not always charitable. Baby boomers as a generation, how do you view us in our ministries, and how can we create a space for you as a more submissive generation to step out in your ministerial gifts?
I told Sister I'd give her the hard question. Sister.
I guess from being offspring of the baby boomer generation, our faith has been an inheritance to us. And how do we come about to make it an ownership? And living it out where it's not just of what mom and dad had said, or this is what mom and dad made me do, but this is why I do something, why I want to do it, and how I do it. I'm very always curious about the why of things. Why do we do things? And I think that's what really drew me also to my vocation and reversion back to my faith. And again, it's a sense of ownership. I thank my parents for baptizing me as a cradle Catholic. My mom is Catholic, my dad is Buddhist. And so my dad was the one who wanted my brothers and I to be baptized, which is quite odd. And he's the one that reminded us to go to church. And then eventually where we took ownership of our faith. And where we go about, we share when people are asking, well, that must have been your parents who told you this. Yes, my parents, they ingrained this in one way or another to us. But also, I do it from why? Because I have been able to witness God's love in my own life. And I'm responding to that. And so I hope I was answering your question out there, is that we're gonna have to take ownership, how we help young adults to take ownership of our faith.
Sister gave me a moment to think. What initially came to mind for me is today we're celebrating the feast day of John Paul II, who was the first pope that we as millennials knew. He was the pope that reigned during most of our lifetime. And he continuously said, be not afraid. And so that's something I might say to a generation above me is, as younger millennials, young people, religious, lay people come into leadership roles in the church, I would say to the older generation, be not afraid. Millennials might have a different way of approaching things. They might see different priorities as important. But I think the key is that all of us, the older generations and the younger generation, have the same goal. We want to preach Jesus Christ and his love for the world and his love for people. We might have different ways of doing it, but we all have the same goal in mind, and that's bringing the gospel to people's lives.
I have a question that maybe you could help me with, that's maybe different from the theme that has been going on. My name is Herman Johnson, and I've been teaching college students for 26 years. And the question is, I asked the Chicago Dominican friar, I said, why do you wear the habit to CPE in all the time? I entered in 76. And so in my formation as a Dominican, we never wore a habit. And I haven't worn a habit in 26 years in the classroom. I just use it liturgically. And so I asked the Chicago Dominican last summer why he wears it all the time, because I wanted to understand and ask the question to a young person, because I know in the 60s and 70s, that was a divisive fight. It talked about what side of the church you was on. And I'm aware many of you weren't born when we were going through that transition. So my question is, and maybe you could help me, is, and I have students say, brother, why you don't dress like this like the other ones? And so my question is, and I'm not negative about the habit, it's not my formation. My question is, for you as young people, did you see the habit as a connection to us? Because I see it as a sacramental, I see it as incidental. Important, but incidental. What do you say in terms of the implications for vocations, our connections with young people, about this garb that I see now is worn a lot by the younger generation?
I think millennials in particular, as Nada said earlier, young people are looking for an identity. And I think for a lot of young Dominicans, the habit provides an external sign of an identity. I personally don't care whether a friar or a sister wears a habit, wears a veil. It doesn't matter to me, but I like to wear it because it provides an external sign, an external witness of my vocation as a Dominican. And as my experience in ministry has shown, is it connects with a lot of people kind of instantly. I think people know that it stands for something wider than just myself, that when I wear the habit, I represent the church, and I help to bring the presence of God into the situations that I arrive in. And I don't think that's true of people who don't. I'm not saying that, but I find, at least for myself and for other people in my generation, that we have a great love for the habit because of the external symbol that it gives to us and our witness of our vocations.
Part of my formation, I've always wanted to have it. And when I was discerning my vocation, again, I saw our sisters, they'd always wore the habit. It was out of curiosity. What are they and who are they? And I get those questions to this very day. Go to the grocery store, a little kid that's never seen you, they tug on their habit or scalpel, and they're like, what are you? And my first, I'm kind of a smart aleck. In my head, I'm like, I'm a human being. But I don't say that to them. But it gives me an opportunity to engage in conversation, right? And again, going back to identity, it speaks up of who I am as a Dominican, who I belong to. And of course, we have other ways of also understanding being a bride of Christ, and also a reminder what we're called to be and where we're called to be, and being that outward sign to others, reminding each other that we're all called to be with our Father in heaven. What does it kind of help people to correct their ways of living? Yes. People curse around me. My relatives still do. And I enter into the picture and I was like, excuse you? Oh, my bad. I didn't know that you were here. And it corrects and reminds them you guys.
It's kind of hard to miss.
And so it reminds them, and I don't think it poses a pressure or forces them, but also makes them rethink how we're called. Yes, for me, when I read my habit, it reminds me of how I'm supposed to act, how I'm supposed to speak, how I'm supposed to care. And also, everything, and for us in our habit, each article that we have is a gift. And we're being bedecked by this heavenly gift and a protection from our Blessed Mother who oversees us. And so everything we have is a reminder of what and who we're called and why we chose this. Again, some wear, some don't. Every way that we continue to be that sign to another person that we're called for something greater than ourselves.
Okay, so if we're being real, that is so beautiful, that you guys understand why you're wearing what you're wearing. But I don't. I really don't. If I wouldn't have asked Father Francis, hey, why are you wearing that? I would have never known. And it can go two ways. Either there's fear whenever if I were to see Father Francis out in the grocery store and I didn't know him, oh, no, he's in the pasta aisle, I'm gonna go to a different aisle,
That's just because of the carbs.
But it can either go fear or it can go curiosity, what is that? And then you go up to them and ask. So, it depends really, but it would be better if I knew, honestly, sisters, I do not know why you guys wear what you wear, and I would love to know why. And I'm sure many others would also, just not knowing really the reason.
It's an interesting point you bring up, because what I want to ask is, what I hear you saying is that it's not so much the habit per se that intrigues you, it's the individual, and what you're really looking for is that individual to engage you.
Yes.
So it's not really as much about, because again, what I hear here is a lot of words, I've written them down as you said, it's a lot about identity, about individuality. And again, we all have to refer to that point in time that's our point of reference. I'm 54 years old, I was born in 1964, or 1962 rather. Is very different than what you went through. So I guess what I hear you saying is what you really want from us is not as much the habit as engage me. Talk to me about your life, because I want to know why you chose this life or what you do, and invite me into it.
Yes, we want to hear the story. We want to see a parallel between our struggles and your struggles. We want to know, like, we know we're not alone, but we want to know there's like a light at the end of the tunnel, like type of thing. Like, we want to know what made you choose your vocation, what like led you here.
I would love to ask, I know there's more questions, but we have to close because we have liturgy. Please join me, I don't know about you all, but hearing you all really gives me hope. Thank you all very much. You guys were phenomenal. Sister, beautiful job. Angelo.
Lady. Thank you.
Look at all your happy sisters.
Thank you very much, Paula. You were great.
Good job, buddy.
Thank you, sister. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Voy para arriba porque tengo que ponerme la lista.